Hello, my name is Yvonne Medlin Ramakrishna. I'm a student at Faculty of Language and Art, Sukio Pranoto Catholic University, batch 2022, and majoring in linguistics. So, for my presentation today, I will talk about men and women differences of negative politeness strategies in the movie The Devil Wears Prada. As we all know, men and women seem to have different stereotypes in language. One of the linguistic differences is politeness. According to Brown and Levinson 1987, politeness strategies are methods used by people to mitigate face-threatening acts or FTAs and maintain social harmony. The research focus is negative politeness used by men and women in the movie The Devil Wears Prada in 2006. Next, there are two research questions. The first one is what specific negative politeness strategies are the most used by female characters and male characters in the movie? And the second one is how do the portrayals of negative politeness strategies in the movie reflect society's expectations of gendered communication? The first literature review is man and women language. The first difference is vocabulary choices. Women tend to use expressive and exaggerated terms like gorgeous, lovely, and charming, while men will prefer basic terms like good or great to express their feelings. Then, women frequently use hedges like I think, maybe, and tag questions like isn't it or don't you. Meanwhile, men will make more straightforward statements. In contextual adjustments, men and women change their speech depending on their conversation partner's gender, using more words when speaking with women. Both men and women tend to adjust their speech patterns based on the gender of their interlocutors. The last one is nonverbal communication. Women tend to use more expressive nonverbal cues like posture, facial expressions, and eye contact. However, it sometimes can be misinterpreted in professional settings. For example, if a woman uses too many gestures or smiles too much, it might be interpreted as a lack of seriousness and authority. The second literature review is politeness. Then Brown and Levinson 1987 developed the politeness theory focusing on managing social interaction and avoiding face-threatening acts, or FTAs. Then Kaufman in 1967 introduced the concept of face, which means one's self-esteem and social value. Meanwhile, Holmes in 1995 stated that women use positive politeness and men use negative politeness. However, Yule in 1996 stated the concept of positive and negative face and positive and negative politeness. Positive face is the need to feel liked or appreciated by other people, while negative face is the need to be free to act without being forced, which involve showing respect for personal space and using indirect language. Yule's concept of positive and negative politeness is basically the same as Brown and Levinson's. Brown and Levinson identify four main types of politeness. They are both on record, positive politeness, negative politeness, and off record or indirect. Negative politeness is usually shown by using indirect language, hedging, downplaying, apologizing, offering deference, using formal language or titles, and using impersonal language. In methodology, the data source is analysis based on the movie The Devil Wears Prada, and the approach is qualitative content analysis of dialogues focusing on negative politeness strategies used by male and female characters. For the finding in women's use of negative politeness, there are 27 data found, and there are 11 data for using hedges, making it the most used negative politeness strategy in the movie. Here are some of the examples. So, all of the lines used hedges to show that the speakers are being less direct and assertive to make it less demanding on the listener and soften their statement. The next strategy is apologizing. Both lines express apology to show that she is aware that she let down and disappointing the listeners. Then the third strategy is using indirect language. In the first line, Emily used indirect language to talk about how serious the job is. And she does not directly say that the listener failed, but she gave a clue by saying if you mess up and makes the consequences serious. In the second line, instead of deliver the book to my home, Miranda said, I would like you to deliver the book. This politeness strategy respects Andrea's freedom to decide, even though Miranda is clearly giving her an instruction. The next strategy is downplaying. The lines show that she is not suitable for the expected standards of the place she is in, and she is not one of the girls. She tries to show that she is different and not a part of the group that is glamorous and fashionable. Then the fifth strategy is offering deference. In these lines, Andrea acknowledges that her request is very sudden and impossible to get. However, she used a more indirect form, which is polite and shows difference and show understanding to the listener. The next strategy is using formal language and titles. The first line, Andrea shows respect and acknowledges Miranda's social status by using the formal title Mrs. And she also shows formality and being professional. The next line, Miranda refers to her husband as Mr. Priestley if to show respect, even though she is talking negative about herself and her marriage. And the last strategy is using impersonal language. In this line, by using impersonal language, she does not directly express her listeners' thoughts or feelings, so her comments feel less direct and less threatening. By talking about this stuff, instead of her listeners' specific actions, Miranda softens her criticism and keeps it polite. The next findings are men's use of negative politeness. In these findings, I found out that male characters very rarely use negative politeness in their utterances. There are only 11 negative politeness that could be found in the movie, and the most used is using formal language and titles. So the first example is using hedges in the first line. By asking a question instead of accusing the listener directly, Nigel tried to be less forceful and more polite. Well, in the second line, Hedges like, you know, and I've been thinking, make the statement softer and less direct when he tries to say that the listener still owes him after he helped the listener. The next strategy is apologizing. In this line, Nigel was apologizing because he is aware that he has not introduced Andrea formally and politely to Earth Rabbits. This shows that Nigel understands and follows the social rules. The next strategy is using indirect language. In this line, Christian does not ask directly if the listener, Andrea, will be in Paris. He said, and found myself wondering if you will be there, instead of, will you be in Paris? This way, he made his questions less direct. By saying he was just thinking about it, he makes it clear that he is not demanding. The next strategy is downplaying. In the first line, Nate downplays the importance of Andrea's task, like answering phones and getting coffee, by saying they are simple and don't need particular clothes. This makes Andrea's job seems easy and does not need much preparation. In the second example, Nigel was guessing Andrea's shoe size. By saying this utterance, he makes it seem like he did not struggle to find the perfect size for Andrea. And the next strategy used is offering deference. In this line, Doug shows respect by acknowledging Miranda's higher status. When he says, I bet a million girls would kill for this job, he is expressing that this job is desirable and tries to make Andrea feels lucky to have her current position. Then the next strategy is using formal language or titles. In the first line, Nigel calls Earth Rabbits with Mr. Rabbits to show respect and maintain professionality, while Mr. Rabbits called Nigel with his name, because Mr. Rabbits has a higher status or position. Then in the next line, the butler's formal greeting using the hotel's name is to show professionalism and respect. And the last example, when Nigel says this line, he is showing that he is respectful toward Miranda, who has a higher position than him and values everyone who is listening in the formal gathering. The last strategy is using impersonal language. In the sentence, Nigel is being polite by not directly telling someone what to do. He says Miranda wants us upstairs instead of Miranda wants you upstairs. He is telling that what Miranda wanted without commanding, so it sounds more like an information rather than an order. In conclusion, based on the findings, men are proven to rarely use negative politeness strategies. On the other hand, they are more direct in conveying their thoughts. Another example is when Andrea complains about Miranda to Nigel. Nigel feels like Andrea does not want the job anymore, so Nigel says, "So quit. We could replace you in 5 minutes with someone who really wants this job." Therefore, based on those findings, it could be said that the linguistic differences and stereotypes based on gender, where women use more polite language and not being straightforward, is true. Then, politeness strategies like the use of hedges and tag questions are often employed by women to avoid conflict and soften their tone. In contrast, men's communication tends to prioritize clarity and assertiveness to show masculinity and authority. The last conclusion is female characters use more hedges, apologies, and indirect language. Therefore, it aligns with the society's expectation and stereotypes of women being more polite and less confrontational. That is all for my presentation. Thank you so much for listening.